do this every time, and now it's 8 seconds
Perfect.
of us waiting.
That's fine. We're all good. Okay.
All right,
Where is
ready?
it?
It's the age-old tale of... Oh, who even cares? We watched Frozen Assets, which means it's time for another Portland at the Movies.
In a world, in a time, in a land of eternal beauty, all that stands between a city and a disaster. If you thought you had seen it all,
Are we so stupid as to equate a man's virility with the number of spermatozoa in his reproductive fluid?
Hello and welcome to another episode of Portland at the Movies. I am Todd Borkoven. I am joined, as always, by Mark Middleton. How are you, Mark?
I'm better now that we've made it through this movie, and
Now that we're on the other side.
The other side, we're on the downhill slope.
Well, good. And, of course, Brian, the Unipiper Kid. How are you, Brian?
Hey, Todd. Yes, I am happy to be here today because it means that things can only get better from here.
This really was some sort of turning point.
A low point, yeah.
It really was. And full disclosure, going into this movie, I was excited. I was excited because I felt like it was going to be like a Full House, 80s sitcom, stupid but funny, type just check your brain at the door, but it's still goofy and fun. And this was just dreadful.
There were some warning signs. There were some signs on the wall.
Which were what are your signs? Like, how can you tell a bad movie's coming?
So we're in the year 2018, and this movie is not available anywhere. It's almost like this movie doesn't exist.
The only place it existed is at Movie Madness.
On VHS.
On VHS, which you're wearing an awesome Movie Madness shirt, by the way.
Oh, thank you. I just this is my Kickstarter reward for supporting Movie Madness.
That's pretty great. So it was my first trip to Movie Madness, and I rented Frozen Assets.
That's a pretty good one, I guess.
We can all watch it together.
At least you went in there renting something that you couldn't get anywhere else.
Right. And it kind of sounds like we're overreacting, but I think right out of the gate, we're going to start with kind of a double review from Gene Siskel and Roger Ebert. Roger Ebert wrote a review for the Chicago Sun-Times, which is the newspaper he wrote for. And Mark, why don't you read a little bit of his review of Frozen Assets?
So this was posted on October 23rd of 1992, and this is Roger Ebert giving it a thumbs down. He says, I didn't feel like a viewer during Frozen Assets. I felt like an eyewitness at a disaster. If I were more of a hero, I would spend the next couple of weeks breaking into theaters where this movie is being shown and lead the audience to safety. And if I'd been an actor in the film, I would wonder why all the characters in Frozen Assets seemed dumber than the average roadkill. This is a comedy, not the right word, about a business executive whose corporation sends him to a small town to run the bank. Only when he gets there does he discover it's a sperm bank.
Yeah, so that is the premise of this movie. Is that Corbin Bernsen is some sort of lawyer, some sort of bank executive, junior bank executive.
VP of marketing.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he had a nameplate on his desk.
Okay, well, apparently he was that down in Los Angeles, and he is the low man on the totem pole, and he gets his big shot to move up to the big bank in Hobart,
Oregon.
I kept getting that mixed up with Hogarth, which is the kid in Iron Giant.
Right, and this is a fictional town, fictional Oregon town.
Yes, fictional Oregon town of Hobart.
Hobart.
Oh, boy. And he goes up there needing to turn this bank around, not realizing that, yes, it is a small town sperm bank. Like all small towns have.
This movie has the shortest synopsis I've ever seen for a film on IMDb. It is one sentence and says, a man is hired to run a bank, which turns out to be a sperm bank.
Yep.
Frozen Assets, folks.
Frozen Assets.
That is about the level of thought put into this movie. So that was Mark read from the
Roger Ebert
review. And so here's from their television show. Let me bring it
Okay, our next film is called Frozen Assets, and we take a step way down in quality here. This is one of the dumbest comedies I have ever seen.
You're going very easy on it, I see.
So far, let me try. The first lame joke sets up the whole story as Corbin Bernsen is...
Skip ahead. Can you just give us a little plot synopsis here?
So to be clear, we do watch a lot of bad movies on this show, but this is we're talking another level.
It just joyless.
With others,
Okay,
you know,
so here we go.
A little of his act goes a long way. I knew Frozen Assets was going to be awful from its opening scene in which we see an executive at the head office jabbering on the phone with underwear stretched over his head. I don't think I can adequately describe to you how unpleasant the remaining 95 minutes were or will be for you. It was as depressing an experience as I've ever had going to the movies. That's 23 years of going to the movies professionally, maybe 6,000, 7,000 pictures.
Well, Gene, I was going to the movies professionally for 2 or 3 years before you were, and there was nothing I saw during that time that even approached this in its abysmal awfulness. This is perhaps the worst comedy ever made. And you know the theory of reincarnation?
They may take that ad out. They may take...
That makes it sound good.
They get the second worst comedy ever made.
Okay,
They won't use
no,
it.
not even the worst comedy ever made, just the worst movie ever made. I don't know. You know the theory of reincarnation where the dues we pay in this lifetime,
Yes.
we may get to collect in another lifetime. For having seen this movie, I want months and months and months in a beautiful valley with honey and nectar and zephyr-like
Wow, they're
breezes.
taking this pretty
I mean,
deep.
Years,
Yeah.
perhaps, would be...
Because like I said on the outside, I thought it was just going to be this light, dumb thing, and I can't point to anything like a specific point that I was like, that's bad. But by the end, you are just a joyless husk of a human being.
It's an assault on your senses and your
integrity.
yeah,
and your-
as a person. It's offensive in like the worst ways possible.
It really is. And so the tone of this movie. Oh, before we get too far into it, I did want to. So it's Hobart. So we did get a shout on the radio. So they locate Hobart
I love
close
this.
to Willamette or Willamette,
Wilsonville.
Wilsonville and Cave Junction. Cave Junction being on the border of California.
Now I'm wondering if
almost.
they did that on purpose
So
in
that
order
you-
to so that it would kind of be like anywhere Oregon.
You
You'll
can't
pick
place it.
two far apart cities. The radio calls itself out as serving the locales of Wilsonville.
Yeah, I've got that little quote here.
You've been listening to Northwest Oregon's flagship station, QORE, serving the towns of Wilsonville, Cave Junction, and Hobart. And remember, citizens
Now, you
of Hobart,
can't get much farther apart than Wilsonville and Cave Junction.
You might need to go to Astoria or maybe Oregon, or not Oregon, Ontario. But the tone of this movie, I'll play. So Corbin Bernsen shows up all the way to this bank and still thinks it's a regular bank, and the movie thinks
for a really long time.
for a really long time he has shown up and he starts talking to one of the frequent patrons of this sperm
Yes.
donation place. He says he
customer.
comes 3 times a week.
Yeah.
Now,
There you go.
Frequent donor.
I feel like I'm walking into a question I don't really want the answer to, but I mean, I guess you get paid for donate. You do it for money. Like, he's not saving this for himself for some reason.
There's
No.
there's a chapter about this in Tickle My Pickle. Tickle His Pickle. So,
Which is the naughty book Mark found at the Goodwill outlet bins.
Nobody knows what we're
Nobody
talking
knows what we're
about.
talking about?
yeah, you get paid for it.
Okay, so I guess that makes more sense. But I mean, you're in a small.
So my question is, why does a town of 300 have a sperm bank and a brothel?
And an active
Very active
brothel and an active, so much, the prostitution is so rampant, the prostitutes picket at some point the sperm bank.
They have a
for
union.
reasons.
Yeah.
The prostitution union. But Corbin Bernsen shows up, he thinks it's a bank, and so he starts talking to this customer that's sitting there, and you'll get the level of humor and dialogue that this movie is working with.
Are you in the habit of keeping our larger depositors waiting? What do you mean there is no
sorry.
combination?
My bad.
My bad.
Try it again,
This
Dad.
is actually happening on the
Oh, it's
on the mini
Get up.
screen.
on the big screen.
Zach Shepard, new president and chief executive officer. First day in Oregon.
That's Oregon.
I did like that.
Tell me,
touch.
how long
Yeah.
you been banking with us?
I guess you could call me a regular. 2 deposits a week for the last 7 years.
Good.
Yeah.
I keep a lot on hand in case of an emergency.
Now, that's a good idea to keep those assets liquid.
No, you nuts? No, I keep mine frozen.
That's a smart move for the small depositor.
Well, it's not that small.
That scene goes on another
painfully.
minute. But that's I mean that's the joke. Like the whole movie is like a discarded sitcom episode.
It really
that
feels
they found in the trash bin, and somehow the writer has written nothing else. The production company is just called Frozen Assets Productions.
Let's talk about the writer for a second.
Okay.
Or the two writers. So
yes, it just took two people.
it is credited as being written by two people. Don Klein, who truly has written. He has no other credits.
Right. That's
so
the one
this
I
is like
saw.
a one and done. So that right there, and he's also a producer of the movie.
Yeah.
And to make it really weird, there's a credit in the credits that says something like, "This movie is dedicated to the memory of my father, Leonard Klein." So it's clearly like the person who wrote it and produced it, it's dedicated to the memory of his father.
Can you imagine if your child grew up
and
made this movie and dedicated it to you?
Put your name on
What a slap in the face.
There's got to be more to this story. So my working theory is that this guy's father was like the king of dad jokes. And he was just into puns, and he had this grand idea, and he would always talk about his idea for a movie, and he would just make jokes about sperm banks. And so his son, in tribute to his father, took his dad's one idea and wrote a movie.
And in true dad joke form, there are no jokes and or humor in this entire movie.
Yeah, I was going to ask if Mark got any new material out of this, but
well, this,
now, to his credit, there was one joke that I laughed at.
Okay.
It went by rather quick, and you may have missed it, but I genuinely laughed when Zach is getting on the scene and he's checking out the lab for the first time. Where
Zach is Corbin Bernsen?
Corbin Bernsen,
okay.
yeah. And he's walking into the lab for the first time, and they have a centrifuge, and he opens the lid to the centrifuge, and all of the things spinning have blue caps, and he's like, $10 on blue. I laughed at that.
Did you? Wow. I would judge you, but you sat through Frozen Assets, so I know all of our thinking was clouded.
Judgment is totally clouded.
But it is interesting because this has, like we said, Corbin Bernsen and Shelley Long in it, and both of them, he was on LA Law at the time, so this was during his stint. She had already left Cheers, but she had been in The Money Pit, Outrageous Fortune, Hello Again, and then True Beverly Hills, and then Frozen Assets. So she wasn't like, this was on our downward slump, I guess,
obviously.
but I don't think this was like during the dark times or whatever like that.
Right.
So I don't know, the movie is just so bad, I don't know how they managed to get anyone to be in it, let alone Shelley Long at this point.
This movie has a lot of explaining to do. I truly, more than any other movie that we've watched, I want to know exactly why and how this got made.
Greenlighted,
and the whole thing does not only is written like a terrible sitcom, up to the point where two people get locked in a freezer together. It's shot like a TV show. It's edited and paced like a TV show. Everything is just flatly lit.
It's got everything but a laugh trap.
Now I watched
it. Really does.
I watched it for a second time today, right before we recorded this, and I watched it at 1.5 speed, and played that fast. It feels like a cartoon. Like it feels like the pacing, it's the jokes and quote unquote jokes. It's made for children. Like it's presented how you would in like a cartoon.
And I
for
wouldn't
kids.
even blame its fault necessarily on that, because I think things done in that style, I can enjoy them. You know, like the Brady Bunch or something like that. But I just everything about the written aspect of this is just awful.
It's this dichotomy between the way that it's being presented and what the material is, and how like kind of gross and awkward the humor is, because it's all about sperm and sex and jacking off.
It also felt like there were big expository sentences. Let's see if I can find one here, where it felt like you were watching an educational video about like IVF and in vitro fertilization, and let's see.
Sexual performance. We're just.
We got started off on the wrong foot. Let's start over again. I'm new at this. I don't even understand why they built a a place like this in a hick town like Hobart?
Because hicks like us also have problems with impotence and sterility and sexual performance. We're just like you.
Nothing personal.
Nothing personal.
Thanks a lot.
So let's talk about their relationship. How would you describe, Mark, their relationship between Corbin Bernsen and Shelley Long in this movie?
Well, it definitely starts out with him just being a misogynist bastard.
Yes.
And just derogatory statements and very sexist and very caustic and antagonistic and terrible. He's just a terrible human. And this is 1992 when they're doing it, so it's meant to be humorous.
Did you watch L.A. Law at all? No. I'm assuming he played some sort of like flyboy, woman chaser on that show. I don't know if he did, but I'm assuming it was playing off of that character.
I only know him as the dad from Psych.
I've never watched Psych.
He was on American Gods this past
Oh,
year.
really?
And he was fantastic in that.
Oh, really? He's been in
he's like 300.
a lot,
His IMDb
a lot
is
of garbage. Going through VHSs at thrift stores, I find a lot of garbage that Corbin Bernsen is in, but he's been working constantly
since the 60s.
But do you think he changed by the end? Were we given any indications other than the movie told us that they were?
He did perform the selfless action in the end where he was going to try and quote-unquote save the town because he ends up stealing the sperm truck.
Okay.
And that's supposed to be his redemption, I suppose. But just his actions make this movie, because he is so misogynistic, this movie's like a relic from its era of the worst that 92 had to offer.
He literally calls her fat. He calls her... What else does he call her?
A cow.
He calls her a cow. He calls her old. And Shelley Long in this movie lives in the small town, but she is the director of the health clinic of the sperm bank. She is a doctor.
She's a doctor.
She is an independent woman living on her own. The second Corbin Bernsen walks in the door, she is lost and in a tizzy and in love and needs his validation. And he just negs her into a relationship by just saying, you're ugly, you're fat, you're old, and she just cannot get enough of it. It is astonishing.
Yeah, it's terrible.
And I wonder if, because Shelley Long's character on Cheers was, she was the prudish kind of one, and I wonder if they were trying to trade off that, but they didn't understand the difference between, prudishness and misogyny or just hatred, or I don't know.
So who do you think they thought the audience would be for this movie? Because it is so unlike what you would consider a typical rom-com that women would flock to see. Was this made to be, let's make a rom-com but appeal to guys, or was this just made to appeal to people with a low IQ?
I would almost say children, because that's what it looks like. I mean, it looks like a family film, not like children, but it's like, let's bring the whole family to this. It's like Doc Hollywood type thing, big town doctor goes to small town.
With prostitutes.
And it's PG. This is rated PG-13.
Yeah, it's pretty hard 13.
So it appeals not to kids. It does not appeal to adults. It appeals to
humans.
I almost wondered if I started making this conspiracy theory in my head that this whole thing was some sort of tax dodge or money laundering thing or something like that. I don't know what the budget of this was.
So one note about the other writer. So I said there were 2 writers credited. The other writer has instead of just 1 credit to his name, has 2 credits to his name. It was this movie and an episode of Star Trek The Next Generation, which was essentially a romantic comedy episode of Star Trek The Next Generation.
How close was that to this script?
I mean, it wasn't about sperm banks or anything.
No. How close in time? Yeah.
Okay, so that episode...
Quark opens a sperm bank.
It actually would have been really close to 92, if not the same year.
Because it would be... that would be a little more understandable than, if that was, 10 years later or something like that. But if he was already...
Oh,
he was
91.
Oh, so it was before this.
Yeah, just before.
Boy, that does not make any sense. Nothing about this movie makes any sense. Wow. So he comes to this small town bank, learns it's a sperm bank. Blah blah blah. Clashes heads. What's the phrase? Clashes
Butts heads.
butts heads. Clashes. Is there a clash?
Clash of
Clash of the Titans.
Yes.
Butts heads with Corbin or Shelley Long. Blah blah blah. He wants to try to make the sperm bank profitable. She says no, it should be a gift and free for everyone. Blah blah blah. So he takes over. Corbin Bernsen does, and then makes a big sale to apparently gangsters that need sperm. And so they can't. The small town sperm bank cannot fulfill 5,000 orders. So, in order to fill,
I'm sure it was going to Japan.
Yeah. Well, the guy, whoever brokered that deal on the other side of the phone, they never showed him, sounded like one of the mafia crime family guys. He had like a Jersey accent and wanted all this sperm. It was very unsettling. So in order to fulfill that, Corbin Bernsen comes up with a plan to say, we will give $100,000 to the man in town with the highest sperm count. And that gets everybody in the town, which it's like only 300 people,
right,
to fill 5,000 orders.
There'd be 150 men.
That's true.
I assume that their plan was that you could donate as much as you
But still,
wanted.
why would the person buying the sperms be like, well, there's only 150 different samples here, even though there's, you know what I mean?
Well, if they're all,
you want variety.
If they're going to different people, I guess it doesn't really matter.
I just didn't. It seemed like
the plot wasn't.
It didn't make a lot of sense. Let's talk about the contest and how the men are.
There was no narrative flow or
character
reasons.
development or plot arc or any of those things.
So the idea of this contest is what sets up like the rest of the movie. It hinges upon this contest and using it to be what makes money for Zach. And the people in the they put on a variety show.
I could talk about that for the next 10 hours. It's like a whole city pep rally at the school gym. And if anyone is listening right now, I met somebody at the Portland Podcast Festival that asked if we were going to do Frozen Assets, and he said I was an extra in that when I was a little kid.
Oh, wow.
And unfortunately, we were in the bathroom while I was using the bathroom, and so could not write his name down or his information before he scuffled off to get another drink. But if you are that person, let us know, because I don't know where that part was filmed, but it would be also interesting to hear that. But it's this school pep rally with cheerleaders, and
they come up with a musical number all about the best ways to donate your sperm.
And here's and it's again, it feels like, let me find it for you. It feels like a film strip about pregnancy, and it's just so weird. Let me back it up here.
So because I'm good time to mention that the movie actually does start with an animated sequence.
Yes, it does.
Terrible.
With animated sperm going.
That started, and then I immediately said to myself, oh, it's going to be this kind of movie.
And that was not the only animated sequence in this movie.
No, surprisingly.
Because a character we have not talked about yet, but we will probably after this, has a dream sequence. But here's a little bit of this town-wide pep rally to announce the contest to find the most virile man in Hobart. Back that one up a little bit.
One of you lucky men is going to be $100,000 richer.
And the people of this town could not be more excited for this contest.
Everyone is on board at this point. The men, the women, the children.
All right.
You all want all the kids in town want their dad to be the most virile man.
You should not drink. No cigarette. Not be smokers. Win no bet. And throw out those designer pants. 'Cause a tight crotch has no chance. So you better shape up. And sacrifice all that is dear. It's tough but oh so perfectly clear. If you're to be done all the year.
I mean,
So
my question about this is, they just announced this contest. When have these people gotten together, written an incredibly detailed and explicit song about reproductive rights?
they had this planned well.
They did. I mean, it went off without a hitch. It was a beautiful performance. But I just frankly, I wrote down, what the fuck is happening at this point? Because it was so weird.
Everything I learned about increasing my sperm count, I learned from the High School Musical number in Frozen Assets.
I mean, it was solid advice. All of the things they said, and it was funny because I used to do writing for a fertility clinic, and every week had to write all these tips about smoking this and caffeine and all this, and it was all in there.
God.
So it was just just this big educational film. So they have this contest. The character we have not talked about is the character that is played by character actor comedian Larry Miller. I'm trying to think of what most people would know Larry Miller from.
Didn't realize I liked him as much as he's a good actor.
He's funny. He's always in stuff, and he's always funny. He's one of those people you're like, oh, that guy. Yeah.
He was in all the movies from
Best in
Christopher
Show.
Guest.
He shows up in those. So he plays.
He's also the dean in The Nutty Professor with Eddie Murphy.
Okay. So Larry Miller shows up as Corbin Bernsen is driving up to Oregon as a hitchhiker, and he's just saying all this nonsense. He plays a crazy person, and Corbin Bernsen drops him off at a castle.
Yeah, he says, "Take me to my house," and then he ends up driving to a castle.
But I was shocked to realize that castle...
It was just weird because out of nowhere was a genuine castle complete with turrets and moats.
Yeah.
The only thing missing was like a dragon.
And you ended up finding that was called the Canterbury Castle.
Canterbury
and
Castle.
It was in the West Hills somewhere, and we just
torn down in 2009.
It was just a structural nightmare from what they said.
It has its own Wikipedia page, and it sounds amazing.
It looked really cool.
I am sure there's people commenting right now. I used to go to the castle.
They had it open to the public for a while.
Yeah.
Before they tore it down. But Larry Miller's character lives there with his mom, and Corbin Bernsen ends up staying over the night or whatever. Why are they sharing a small boy's room? Corbin Bernsen sleeps in the same room as Larry Miller. It's a child's room with 2 twin beds. It's a castle. There's got to be another room for him to sleep in.
Well, we do know that his character is eccentric.
But Corbin Bernsen's isn't. Like, I could see Larry Miller being like, "Oh, let's stay up all night and like have a slumber party," because that was his character. But Corbin Bernsen is not a lawyer, he's
a banker.
He's a banker, and that was so dumb.
Apparently, it still beats a room in the brothel. Shall we?
Yes, we shall. So Corbin pulls into town and asks, "How does he just pull in there, or did he ask somewhere?"
No,
where's the Imperial?
He had like his reservation all set up.
So he pulls in.
Put me up at the Imperial. They really care about me.
So he pulls into the Imperial, which is the building next to Papa Hayden on Northwest 23rd.
Oh, what is it today?
I don't know. It's some random. I think it's been a couple different places over the past
still
decade or so. It's still
Asian-y theme?
No, I think that might have just been set dressed
for the movie. Interesting.
But the building still looks the same. But this had
it's a very unique looking building.
Yeah. So it had some like lanterns out in front of it, or to set dress it. And so he walks in, and it turns out it's not just a hotel, but it's a brothel, a very active brothel with tons of people. It was very loud inside. You could hear through all the rooms or whatever. But Corbin Bernsen never picks up on it. Does he?
That it's a brothel?
Yeah.
He does.
He totally does. I mean, he looks through the peephole that's in his room to the next room. He doesn't touch anything without putting a rag over his hand.
Right.
And that's why he decides to go stay with Larry Miller in the castle.
Right.
Oh,
right. Yeah. Because he's like, this is disgusting, and I don't want to be here.
This is the scene, though, we get one of the greatest puns in the movie.
Which is?
So we're introduced into some of the women who are working the brothel, and they introduce themselves. And the one woman, she says she's wearing a red dress, and she has these earrings on in the shape of a heart. And then she like grabs the earring, and she's like, "I have a heart on for you."
Oh, that's right. Oh, I think this is it. Hold on.
House rules. I know a German shepherd.
That's Shepherd. A-R-D.
I'm Valentine, and I've got a heart on for you.
This really
touching
is
her
what I had
heart
mine.
earrings. So yeah, that's probably the most clever thing in this movie was that pun.
Right.
That and $10 on Blue.
You just liked it because it reminded you of Wesley Snipes, Passenger 57.
It reminded me of
Black.
It reminded me of anything else.
It reminded you that life was worth living.
There is
somewhere,
a world
somehow.
outside of this movie.
So as this, after they announced this contest, everybody, every dude in town stands in line at the sperm bank. Do you guys know where the location?
The bank.
The bank. That's the only location I wasn't able to figure out.
I don't know.
I couldn't get it because they had those street lamps. With like
It had the street lamps, and
big...
one of my friends, I was talking about it on Facebook, said, "Boy, those tiny street lamps look weird." And if you look at it, you'll see it's a shot from across the street. It's done really tight, and I think it's done really tight so that you can't see that it's like in the middle of the city because it's supposed to be this small town. And there's next to these smaller light poles that have some flowers on them. There's a big light pole, and I think they put the smaller light poles in as set dressing to make it look like a small town because it's literally right next to a light pole that just extends out of frame. That's way too big. But I still cannot figure out where that location is. So.
It has the vibe to me of somewhere like First or Second on the waterfront.
So yeah,
downtown.
if you look at our Facebook page, there I posted a couple of pictures. I found the other locations, but I was not able to find that one. So all the men line up. There it is. All the men line up, and then all of a sudden, as the men are lining up to win their prize, there's a protest that breaks out, and for some reason, housewives and prostitutes are suddenly protesting in the middle of the street. What was that all about?
It's because
I have nothing.
I think I got it. The men in town are all being celibate in order to save their deposits for the contest. And
like
the housewives are not being serviced.
So they're horny housewives.
Yes, and the prostitutes are not getting paid, so they have a common interest.
I understood the prostitute part, but I couldn't figure out like why the housewives were
horny
all
housewives
irritated for some reason.
Because that's 1992 for you.
That's 1992. So Corbin Bernsen and I'm losing my will to live. This whole time, it's supposed to be this Dave and Maddie moonlighting back and forth. We hate each other, but we all know they're going to end up together. They get drunk one night, and he convinces her that they slept together when they had not.
We have
well,
to
they
talk
get
about
drunk.
this scene.
They get drunk, and she kind of tries to rape him, and then she passes out, and he kind of tries to rape her until he passes out.
Yeah,
this whole thing is nuts. Oh, I was at that house this morning.
Yeah,
the Frozen Assets house, except now there's a house next to it as well.
Where's that at?
It's in West Lynn. It's like a mile from the gas station I always get my refill at. But it just seems like even back then the tone of this film wasn't acceptable and didn't make any sense. But I don't know that I want to blame that on the time because it didn't seem like everything was like this. Or is this... It was like that. We're looking back at it now, and because it's very distracting.
Oh, sorry, we're looking for that building.
I'm doing Google Street View trying to find the sperm bank.
More interesting than this
talking
movie.
to Todd. Were we saying Todd? 1992? Oh yeah, I'm so glad we don't have to live in 1992 anymore because all movies.
I did notice as well. Did you notice the Cheers theme song cue
oh my god
that kept popping up in the music?
It kept driving me crazy.
So I think I found it. Isolated one here.
48 minutes and 17 seconds. There's one.
Okay. 48:17.
Yeah, that's when they're in the vault.
They're so cold.
So they're stuck in a vault, and when you open the door, they play a music cue. I have.
Oh, jeez! Wow.
Isn't that insane?
Yeah. Can you pull up the Cheers theme song now so we can
I
hear them side by side?
I can.
And I kept wondering if they were doing that just to fuck with me. This whole Shelley Long connection.
They had to do that on purpose.
Oh, Shelley Long's in this movie? I'm going to be clever.
We need to remind people why they like Shelley Long. Let's see if this works.
Come on.
Yeah.
And so that was Cheers, and then this one. That's pretty. That's pretty ridiculous.
That's like Vanilla Ice. Have you ever heard that interview where he tries to talk about how his song is not ripping off Under Pressure?
Yeah, like Under Pressure was like
dun
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 dun.
dun.
Mine is dun 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 dun. So amazing.
What else stood out to you in this movie?
It was driving me crazy that everything was just so lazily shot. Everyone was shot in a full body. Everyone's in the same room, just standing, talking to each other. It felt like this was the first draft. Like it was enough for them to say, okay, but it's a sperm bank, and when he comes, I don't know, he'll have to hold the baby, and someone calls to make a deal. You know, we'll go back and we'll fill that out. But then they never did, and they're like, oh no, oh we have to shoot. Oh dear.
Can this go direct to VHS?
Yeah. And so yeah, even like I said, they get trapped in a freezer like it's an episode of the Brady Bunch where they like reminisce about something. And I have never seen, I mean, in most things I would say Shelley Long and Corbin Bernsen are competent actors. They're
Sure.
maybe not the greatest of their time, but I have never seen two bodies repel like they were opposite ends of a magnet when they were supposed to be together. And when they were they go to the falls or whatever.
Yeah, Oneonta Falls.
Oneonta Falls, and the only thing, I'm sitting alone in my house like a sad old man watching Frozen Assets in the middle of the night, and they're on this little picnic date or whatever, and they're sitting close to each other, and Corbin Bernsen reaches out to like unbutton the top button of her pink jumpsuit, which she is wearing, and when he reached out and touched that button, I said out loud, "Don't you touch Shelley Long like that!" Because it was just so gross and off-putting, and
whenever they would kiss, the shape of their mouths could not be more incongruent. Like it looked like she was.
It's like one of those logic puzzles where you get all the shapes and you're like you have to fit them together somehow to make them. It just doesn't work.
No.
So anyway, at some point, all of the prostitutes become nurses at the
Yes.
clinic.
Thanks to Shelley Long's son, I mean brother.
What was that?
That was the weirdest thing ever.
Now, granted, I did think it was her son too at first.
Well, of course. Why? My question. So, okay, before I get too worked on it, Shelley Long lives in the small town. She lives in the same house as someone who
As her
looks like
brother.
her son,
Yeah.
but is her brother. And their mom passed away or something like that. I don't know what the story with the mom is.
We got a one-sentence
My
exposition.
question, and so even Shelley Long in the movie says it was like everybody keeps thinking that he's my son. Do I look old? And my question is, why is he her brother? Why not her son? Why not? Like that makes no sense. It doesn't serve the story at all.
No, it absolutely serves the story because
Uh-oh.
she very specifically wanted a child. And so he couldn't be the son because she was yearning. I've virtually birthed 65 children, but I haven't had my own. And so she's very much like trying to drive that maternal instinct, and I want to find a husband. I want to,
and they also want to accentuate the fact that her biological clock is fastly ticking away,
constantly reminding her every scene that she's old.
She's old and fat like a cow.
But why does that character exist? Like
the brother, the brother didn't do anything.
He was.
Well, anyways, this gets back to your original point. He's the one who comes up with the bright idea to put the prostitutes in nurses' outfits.
That's true.
God. And then we get a
Nobody else can do
montage. Where are my montage notes? I was very excited. Oh, that's where the whores become nurses, and it's animated, and it's a time filler. And so this is where we have another animated dream sequence, I guess, by Larry Miller's character, who is feverishly improvising
out of nowhere,
his heart out. I felt so bad for him, just thinking of him trapped in some ADR booth, trying to come up with funny lines for this hideous movie.
Oh, hi, sperm.
Does he survive this movie? Did he come out okay? Do you think he did okay in this movie, Larry Miller?
It doesn't matter. He came out okay because he went on to be in some funny stuff later.
That's true. He wasn't permanently. Oh, there's tracks on the street
there.
Tracks in this
That's
one.
when he
That's
goes
a different
to
one.
the headquarters building. The headquarters building, let's talk location, is the Bank of America building downtown.
Yep. So yeah, there's a couple locations outside the one we can't find. They filmed the big ending sequence where they have the town celebration sesquicentennial at Willamette Falls Park in West Lynn, and the house that Shelley Long lives on is also in West Lynn. I visited that location this morning.
That was pretty cool.
And sent you guys a picture.
Were you all excited? You felt like you were in Hollywood all of a sudden?
I did, yes. The Hollywood.
You wanted to go knock on the door and be like,
West Lynn.
"Excuse me, do you know where you live?"
This is the Frozen Assets house, man.
I bet they don't get that every day.
No, that building was
pretty soon they'll have to cover the house in a blue tarp to keep the tourists away.
Goody style. No, that house is actually a famous historical house, and it was built and owned by the operator of the Oregon woolen mills and one of the first signers of the petition to make Oregon a state.
Oh, wow.
So that was the only worthwhile thing I found out researching this entire movie was that little fact.
It did not look like they still had the white picket fence.
No, they didn't.
There, yeah.
There was a couple other houses next to it that weren't there, but yeah, that was funny to go by. Oh, this movie.
Let's
So
let's keep talking about locations because that's
Okay.
we don't have to talk about the plot if we talk about locations.
So that castle location is in the west was in the West Hills. If you go to portlandatthemovies.com/map, you'll be able to click on an interactive map, and I put I think 5 locations for this movie. If you scroll down to Frozen Assets,
There's not a lot.
There's not a lot, and even what there is, like what we're seeing now, all of the street scenes are so close, and I don't know if that was on purpose again to make it look like a small town, or if the guy was just an incompetent director. The director, George Miller, not the George Miller that did Mad Max.
Not right, not that George
not
Miller.
to be confused with the George Miller that makes good movies.
Like Babe, Pig in the City.
Did he do Babe, Pig in the City?
Pretty sure.
Oh, that's funny.
Let's see. I'm trying to think. The ferry was a neat location.
It was, which is also at Willamette Park. That was just
is that not the Canby ferry?
That was not the Canby ferry. The Canby ferry is different and has a different approach, and the ferry itself is attached along a line for power.
Oh.
This, I think, was just a boat dock or a boat ramp that they put a sign next to that said Hogarth
Ferry.
Hobart.
Stop trying, Todd.
Hogarth. So yeah, but that was at Willamette State Fall Park. So the contest goes awry.
Let's keep talking about locations.
The contest I think we're out. We have nothing left.
I got more.
Oh, do you? Ooh, okay.
I think the Alaska Airlines airplane deserves a mention. You know, that's got to pull at the heartstrings of any Oregonian to see the Alaska Airlines airplane.
It was just corporate footage from Alaska Airlines with somebody's voiceover over it to indicate story.
Nope, never mind. That's all I got. I thought I had something else, but I'm like, oh, we already talked about the radio. Wilsonville, Cave Junction.
Oh, yeah, Cave Junction.
Nope, that's about it.
So back to the story. Ugh. So the whole town is having the contest to find the most virile man, who everyone assumes is going to be this gigantic Paul Bunyan, Grizzly Adams type guy that has 8 kids.
Yeah.
And
did you look up his IMDb page?
Ooh, I didn't.
It's pretty. He's got a pretty cool filmography. His entire career was playing like Bigfoot and tall monster people.
Like huge guy.
He was Harry and the Hendersons.
Really?
Yeah.
That is amazing. Colin loves that movie.
And then this was his last movie because he died a couple years later.
Oh.
Because big tall people don't live long.
No. All right, Pete. Sorry, Peter Mayhew. No, he was great. He was good at being tall. That's funny, Harry and the Hendersons. So, but because of this contest and they're measuring everyone's sperm, somehow they find out that he wasn't the real father of all these kids. And so there's 5 minutes in this movie where the town is in chaos. He is dropping the children off at not random people because it turns out that the wife was having an affair with everyone in town.
Right. So I think they probably just find out that he is sterile, that he probably doesn't have, good sperm. But then how do they make the jump that all 8 children are from different fathers, which they do say?
I feel like, wasn't there a scene where the wife stood up and was like, she admitted to it?
She says that
I got my niece.
They may be from 8 different fathers, but you're the only one they call daddy.
That's right. Which is also terrible.
It's
You're
another-
the only one they call daddy.
It's
even
another
though-
one of those really awkward moments in this movie that is awkward in that 1992 kind of way.
And just that it's played just for laughs like that and out of the blue, because he's been shown to be nothing but a doting, wonderful father. And so he drops the kids off at all these other houses, and like it drops it off at the old man's house. There was the old man and old lady. Do you remember that?
The guy with the big long beard.
Yeah, one of the kids got dropped off there, and they were like in their 70s.
Oh,
I was
wow.
like, oh, you go.
So he's the guy at the end of the movie that we find out it's very subtle, but he actually wins the contest.
Actually wins the contest. You're right, that's him.
Yeah, and then in the movies, he's credited as Stud of the Year Octogenarian.
That's ridiculous. That's awesome.
That is what I want in my obituary.
Stud of the year.
Octogenarian. Oh my gosh. So for some reason, everything goes wrong, and they have to. Corbin Bernsen steals the truck that has the 5,000 vials of sperm in it for some reason.
For some reason, because by him doing that, it shows to Shelley Long that he cares, and it's not just about his promotion and the money. It's about the people in the town, and they have feelings too. And by getting rid of he's going to hold the sperm hostage to get the money that is owed to the winner of the contest.
What?
That's his plan. He's going to steal the sperm, and then he's not going to, because his boss, the head of the conglomerate, says, we're not going to pay out the money.
Okay.
And so he
wants to do the right thing.
He wants to do the right thing, so he's going to hold the sperm hostage until they get the $100,000.
Okay. So he steals the truck, drives it into the river, swims across the river where Shelley Long is addressing the entire town at their sesquicentennial.
Yep.
And that's where we get that line at the beginning where, how dare we? It was the most ludicrous thing I have ever heard in my life. Everything in this movie is delivered poorly. Like the first take, they just took it, and whatever happened, that was it. So here's Shelley Long addressing Hobart, Oregon.
Thank God it's not a real town.
Not long ago, a stranger came into our town. He gave us hopes, made us promises.
Of money, which is probably earning
And
interest
there
in
are
his
a
Swiss bank
ton
account.
of people
That's
in
not
this
the
scene,
issue.
too. Like,
This family
everyone
is
in West Lynn
history.
must
We've
have shown
been
up
had by
for
this
being
California
extra.
And everyone in the next town over.
No, no, no!
I hear she's been making it with the bomb. Oh, let the poor woman
Making
speak
it.
before you burn her at the stake. Joan of Arc reported
Got
that
to that
for
guy's
me.
character. Oh, come on.
Why's the town?
Here we go.
The issue.
First family is history. We've been had by this Californicator.
Californicator.
That was pretty good.
This is a true Oregon moment.
No, no, no!
I hear she's been making it with
Oh,
the
come
bomb.
on. Now I'm just watching it on repeat.
What are we doing? Where am I?
I was trying to... I wanted to get to a
I'm the only one
terrible
in Hobart
speech.
who knows the stud
So
of the
Shelley
year.
Long is supposed to announce the winner of the most virile man. She rips up the envelope and because it's tearing the town apart.
Right.
But I'll never tell.
And so that old lady knows. I just need to get to her speech now. That's all I can think
A
about.
lie. A lie. As a reminder never to let money overpower our need for love and trust. If we can learn just that, nobody here will have been any poorer for having known Zach Shepard.
Speak for yourself.
Now they keep Zach Shepard as Corbin Bernsen. Like at the end of the day, I still don't know her character's name.
Character's
I don't
name?
know.
No, it's Shelley Long.
It's Shelley Long
Or Diane.
So she gives this big impassioned speech about how the whole town has been touched by Corbin Bernsen's being there. He has never been shown to. He sets up the crazy cat lady on a date. That's all. But they all act. Now, I have a big question. I have not seen The Music Man, the old musical.
That's a good movie.
Is this The Music Man?
Is this a
guy
fan theory that you
comes
read
to-
on Reddit?
It occurred to me at the end, and mostly because of the monorail. The only reason I know Music Man is because of the monorail episode
Monorail.
of The Simpsons.
Monorail.
But he comes to town, promises the town something. Everybody in the town gets
Interesting.
excited. Guy skips town. Guy feels bad. Comes back to the town. Blah blah blah. Is that the Music Man?
Yes.
And
It
I
kind of
felt like
is.
that's what they were trying to do.
Wow, you just blew my mind. This is a remake of The Music Man.
With sperm.
Yeah. You replace marching bands with
That's
sperm.
That's our pull quote. It's like the march. It's like the Music Man.
I'm
with
glad we had this
sperm.
talk, because this movie just makes so much more sense now.
But yeah, it occurred to me, and I was like, I haven't seen it, but we're told at the end by Shelley Long just now that Corbin Bernsen meant a lot to this town.
And then there's the one towns member who's like, it's the first person he's meet. It's the frequent donor from the first scene when he comes to town, and he's like, I've known him longer than anyone else in this town, and I think he's an asshole. And then this other townfolk stands up and goes, well, if Crazy Jim thinks he's an asshole, then he's okay in my book. And then
Yeah,
that's when the
there was
whole town is like, we love him.
Everybody's like, yay! And then at that point, that the 8 kids of Grizzly Adams just walk up to him and go, oh, you're our real dad. And like that's how that's wrapped up. That's how the storyline of this broken family of adultery and bastard children spread across the small town gets wrapped up because everyone loves Corbin Bernsen. It is terrible.
We have to talk about the awkward scene where all the women in the sperm bank run off to go watch porn.
Well, that or the scene where we've talked so little about Larry Miller, but his character is so inconsequential, where he goes to the club or something like that and walks out, and all of the women are like, whoo-wee, and like he touches his collar and they all like faint with delight and they devour him. What was happening?
It's because he's the only man in town who can have sex at the moment.
But he lives there. So the only reason the women wanted him was because he was the only one not donating his sperm?
Right. Because all the other men are not putting out right now.
Oh, I did not get that at all. At all.
He's a commodity now.
Did that ever occur to me that was happening in this movie? Wow.
It is kind of funny. Like, I think if they tried to actually do this contest, I think it kind of would be popular.
I went back and forth. I don't think it would be popular like in the movie where there are people standing in line for hours. Because I wonder, like, you wouldn't ever want someone, like, even if the town was having that contest, you would never want anyone to see you, like, go in to, I mean...
But if everybody's doing it...
let's hold a Portland-wide contest to see who has the highest sperm count.
Now, what is the status of sperm banks in Oregon? Are they in need of sperm, like, all the time, like the blood banks are? Or do they have, like, an oversupply? I want to know. Listener who works at the sperm bank, you tell us in the comments below.
And I'm fairly certain that there is a difference between a sperm bank and a fertility clinic. It sounded like Shelley Long was running a fertility clinic. She was helping
but the sign clearly says sperm bank.
Sperm bank, which I just think is a part of a fertility clinic.
Yeah.
Like, it's not... I don't think there's just a sperm bank. Like, I would imagine they were a part of a... But maybe I'm wrong.
And apparently Zach couldn't read the huge letters on the door as he came in.
It is written in like 4-foot letters.
Now,
on
they
the
do
door.
explain that because when he grabs the door to walk in, he grabs the door that says sperm, and his eye is caught by a smudge over the word bank. So he is looking at the word bank, he opens the door, and then he, like, wipes the smudge away with his other hand.
Well, I take it back. This movie has
They have
answered all
thought
of the
of
questions.
everything.
Closed all the plot.
I have no more questions.
I wish I would have written I'm going to see if I can find a little clip of the mob boss that...
Oh, yeah.
And here's our zany scene where Corbin Bernsen, for some reason, there's also a nursery in the clinic for that when parents come to mommy and me classes, they can leave their baby. And so there's a wacky scene where Corbin Bernsen is taking care of a baby.
And he's taking care of the baby, so all the women are, like, out watching porn. Did you not catch that in the movie?
They're in mommy and me class or whatever.
Right, but she says, like, one of the perks of working here is we get some fun materials, and she holds up, like, a VHS of porn, and then the other women are like, ooh, we need a few minutes with that video, and they run off with the video.
What?
Yes, this happened in the movie. It's so awkward.
I have, maybe I just blocked half of this out. I watched it twice, I didn't catch up on that. So let's see if we can listen to the mob boss here.
President, Chief Executive Officer. Yes, Mr. Singer, change the diaper.
Oh. He doesn't have his voice there. The only I think the only actor that survived this movie intact was the hairdresser lady, who I thought was great. She gives Shelley Long her haircut and sasses her, asks her if she wants honest advice or true advice.
Okay,
or...
Todd, go to 32 minutes and 9 seconds.
32 minutes and 9 seconds.
And play that.
Bring it back in one piece.
Only yesterday it was Big Bird. Today, you and your penile implant.
How about a break? One of the fringe benefits of biogenetics? Dirty movies? We're on everybody's mailing list. Who has the time?
Let's make time. Oh, Mr. Shepherd, would you mind watching the babies?
I have never seen that scene before in my life.
You blocked it out.
I do not
Your
remember
brain was
anything
saving
about
you.
that. Oh my gosh.
Let's go watch the penile implant video.
That's like a bins worthy thing. Anyway, I can't find the mob boss now, but it's just so stupid. This whole movie is just stupid and insulting and angering.
The only thing else I have to give a shout out to is the Charlie the Tuna phone, which was amazing.
Yeah.
When that came, that was Larry Miller gets to the castle, goes up into his room, and is talking to someone on a Charlie the Tuna telephone. Like, think of the Garfield telephones that y'all remember, except it's not Garfield, it's Charlie Tuna. I don't think it's Charlie the Tuna. I think it's just Charlie Tuna.
Can you please find one of those at Goodwill for me?
Wouldn't that be amazing if I found the Charlie Tuna? I had never seen anything like that. And just to throw that in this movie was insane. Nothing about this movie made sense. Ugh. Anything else?
So the Ebert review wraps up this question.
Let's bring this full circle.
Movies like Frozen Assets are small miracles. You look at them and wonder how, at any stage of the production, anyone could have thought this was a watchable movie here. Did the director find it funny? Did the actors know they were doomed? Here is a movie to watch in appalled silence. To call it one of the year's worst would be a kindness.
Wow. And it's true. I mean, Shelley Long is a competent actress. There were times where she would kind of fumble or lie or not say it quite, like you would be warming up or something like that. And then those are the takes that are chosen. It's baffling.
I would call this movie unwatchable.
Yeah, it's terrible.
I would too.
Yeah.
Is this the worst one we've watched?
It is.
It has to be.
Because
would you rather watch this or Extraordinary Measures?
Extraordinary Measures.
Extraordinary Measures.
Because Extraordinary Measures was just bland.
Yeah, it's not offensive. This goes the extra mile,
right.
And it works hard to offend you.
Like you come out a worse person.
Yeah.
Than when you came in.
I feel beat up. So, would I recommend this?
No.
I mean, only okay. So when they say that you look at a train wreck, you can't look away. This is like you can't look away from the train wreck, but you are also in that train wreck.
You're watching it from the window of the train as it's wrapping itself around.
Exactly. So this movie is a little bit interesting as a product of its time in the how did this truly get made? But at the same time, you're wasting your time.
I think probably made more offensive because I hate keep going back to Shelley Long, but I mean she's delightful. Like to see good people be in something this bad where it felt like they would have cared if the people making the movie would have cared.
I wrote down in my notes, poor Shelley Long.
I know. And poor Larry Miller trying to hold this nonsense together. His character ends up being a billionaire for some reason, and then at the end hires Corbin Bernsen to do something.
I blame Don Klein, and there's got to be more to that story.
I'm telling you, money laundering. Frozen Assets Productions.
If anyone has a connection,
Frozen Assets film.
If anyone has a connection to Don Klein, please.
Yeah, if you know more about this movie, just let us know at facebook.com/Portland at the movies. Man. So, Mark, you wouldn't recommend this either?
Nope.
Todd?
I don't think so. I wanted so much. Like I said, I wanted the bad 80s sitcom movie. I was in the mood for that. And like you said, it went the extra mile. Like, I forgot how mad I was at this movie. until we did this.
So, like Money Pit was a
Money Pit
solid,
is
like,
great.
Oh,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. True Beverly Hills, she's great in. That was right before this. I mean, obviously Cheers, she was great in, but I never did see Outrageous Fortune with Bette Midler
No.
and her. I never saw that. But yeah, she's great, and I guess True Beverly Hills was 1989, and this was 92, so
She's
this
on her
is
way out.
3 years after her last success. So, and then she's done kind of nothing but TV and a couple little movie cameos. But she's been consistently working. But yeah, man, what a bummer this movie was. You can find it on YouTube if you
Search
look
for
for it.
assets.
If you want, I would scrub through it to see what we're getting at. But you'll see pretty quickly.
If you don't believe us, if you're like, there's no way it can be that bad, don't take our word for it. Just go watch a few minutes.
Watch the first 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And then scrub to the middle, and then scrub to the end, and then you will see. Maybe you'll see Willamette Falls Park, which looks nice.
You're lucky.
Or if you recognize the building.
Yes, if you
let
can
us
find the
know.
building, then let us know because we still. Almost
You'll
looked like
be
you found it now.
$100,000 richer.
I'll start going door to door downtown Portland, knocking on all the businesses. Is this the
Is
sperm
this the Frozen
bank?
Assets place? Oh man. Well, this is truly like a before and after. I feel like we kind of reset another bar. I wish our bars would go up at some point.
We are lower in the
But
bar.
the bars keep getting lower, man. It was funny when I was looking up information on this. Of course, another David Walker article comes up because he's in everything, and he called all these movies the Curse of Homer and Eddie, which is a Whoopi Goldberg, James Belushi movie that we have on our list.
I would say that's accurate only because that movie predated Frozen Assets. Otherwise, it would be the Frozen Assets curse.
Oh, okay, yeah, that's true. That was ground zero. Oh boy. Well, we are done forever with Frozen Assets.
Thank the Lord. Let's hope they never release it on Blu-ray.
Let's hope this is one of those things that just does not survive into the future. Well, you can hear us. You can go see the locations. Go do that. Go to portlandatthemovies.com/map. Find the Frozen Assets. You can see a couple of the locations that we were able to find. You'll see the Castle House, which is really cool. That made this movie at least a little bit worth it to see that Canterbury Castle House that used to be around.
Yeah.
But we are done with that. So thank you, everyone, for joining us. We can be heard on the Fun Employment Radio Network along with a bunch of other great shows, including Greg and Sarah's show. They've got Greg and Sarah have a bunch of great activities coming up. They've got a trip planned up. They've got they've got a movie commentary night coming up at Landmark Saloon, a trip to Alaska. They got a lot of cool things going on. So check their page and listen to them. You can hear me and Mark somewhere. Mark, where can you hear that?
At the Mark and Todd Cast.
Mark and Todd Cast? What's that?
We talk about Portland and some science things about half of the month.
That's right. When we get around to it, and we're not doing this.
Not doing this.
Brian, if people want to learn more about you, what can they do?
They should find me at, as always, unipiper.com, or just open your windows and listen for the sound of the Doppler effect and bagpipes.
Bagpipes coming down. Excellent. Yes, and we are working on a couple new and interesting projects here, so stay tuned for that. We will let you know when those are finished. But go out, listen to our old shows, look at the map. Let us know if you have any insider info on some of the movies filmed around here, if you were in them or an extra, or know some of the locations, let us know. Other than that, I'll just play, I don't know what it is, but I'm sure there's bad 80s synth music at the end of this movie. So I will play that. We will see you guys next time.
You mean the Cheers theme?
Oh, this does sound like it too. The melody does. Even this is just a kick in the crotch.
I'm gonna vomit.